found in the back of the booklets. But now we call upon Jerry Rookhouse to come forward, accompanied by two of these students, to light the first candle. We kindle the first lights in memory of the helpless infants and children who were cut down like young trees before their time. May their memory be a blessing. For the second candle, we call upon Stefan Weinberg, also accompanied by two of our students. We kindle the second light in memory of all mothers and fathers, many of whom died with their children in their arms, wishing they could make the world a safer place for the future. May their memory be a blessing. For the third candle, we call upon Elsa Federbusch, also accompanied by two of the young students. We light the third light in memory of all the rabbis, scholars, poets, and teachers who were taken in order to crush the spirit of others. May their memory be a blessing. For the fourth candle, call upon the survivor, Melvin Federbusch, once again escorted by two of the young people in our community. We light the fourth candle in memory of the martyrs whose lives were given that others might live. May their memory be a blessing. For the fifth candle, we call upon Jack and Ina Polak, also accompanied by two students. We kindle the fifth candle in memory of the resistors who dedicated their lives to fighting the Nazi reign of terror. May their memory be a blessing. And for the sixth candle, we call upon Bernie and Ruth Storch, survivors, once again accompanied by two of the young people who will carry on their legacy of witnessing. We kindle this sixth candle in memory of all the other individuals who were so cruelly separated from their families, never to be seen again. May their memory be a blessing. These witnesses to the horrors of the Holocaust stand with these young people who are now given the task of carrying forward the lessons of the past, but also to help us build a community of promise. We say, may you find strength in one another, and may we be a source of strength to each other. And let us say, Amen.
Join with me as we read the psalm responsively. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, you are very great. You stretch out the heavens like a tent. You set the beams of your chambers on the waters. You make the winds your messengers, fire and flame your ministers. In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. There go the ships and Leviathan that you formed to sport in it. When you give to them, they gather it up. When you open your hand, they are filled with good things. When you send forth your Spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground. Who looks on the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountains and they smoke. May my meditation be pleasing to him, for I rejoice in the Lord. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Praise the Lord.
It's appropriate that our speaker for our 20th anniversary Holocaust Interfaith Commemoration is Dr. P.C. Innes, affectionately known to many of us as Buddy. It was he who was the inspiration for this first commemoration, which was held 20 years ago, following a very sad and painful anti-Semitic graffiti incident in Bronxville in 1991. Dr. Innes had arrived to take up the position as the senior minister at the Reformed Church shortly before. He came to us at the right time, in the right place, with the right message. He had come from Atlanta, Georgia, where he had been the senior pastor of a Presbyterian church in central Atlanta, and had been appointed by then Mayor Andrew Young to serve on the Civilian Review Board. So he had dealt with cases of discrimination and racial issues. He understood the need to build bridges of understanding and to be supported both by education and dialogue. It was his idea to form and to put together a commemorative service, or a commemoration, I should say. And he invited the local churches and synagogues, the school districts, the police departments, and all other interested people in the Bronxville, Eastchester, and Tuckahoe area to be a part of this commemoration. And his idea was met with great enthusiasm. What the service that you're saying tonight, the commemoration that you see tonight, very similar to the very first one that we had 20 years ago. From the very beginning, the idea was to include the students, both in their essay contest and their poetry contest, and all of their musical contributions as well. It also always included the survivors who came to us with their stories and their messages and the strong sense that we must remember year by year. And it came with all of the clergy and our local communities participating so that we might build stronger bridges of understanding and might come together. And I can tell you, over these 20 years, we have so many friends as a result of the time and energy that has gone in to coming together each year for the purpose of remembering. And it was Dr. Ennis's idea that really created the foundation for building this bridge, and we continued to build on it for the past 20 years. We've missed Dr. Ennis and his wife, Janie, who was also a very big part of this since their retirement when they moved back to Atlanta several years ago. But they've kept in touch with a lot of us, and they've never lost interest in this annual commemoration nor the work of the Westchester Holocaust and Human Rights Center. For some of you who don't know Buddy, you might be interested in a little bit of his background. He graduated from high school in Jacksonville, Florida, and went on to Davidson College, where he received a bachelor's degree, and then later, I think in the late 1980s, received an honorary doctorate from Davidson. He attended and graduated from Columbia Seminary in Georgia, where he received both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. In fact, his master's thesis was entitled "The Source of Martin Luther King's Theology." He's served many churches in Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida. And following his retirement, he has also served as an interim pastor of many churches, including First Presbyterian Church in Manhattan. Today, he is currently part-time at Trinity Presbyterian Church in Atlanta as the theologian in residence. He has served on many boards of trustees, Queens College in Charlotte, North Carolina, Eckerd College, Columbia Theological Seminary, and Union Theological Seminary in New York City. He's also served on many boards and published in many religious periodicals. It is my deep honor to introduce Dr. Ennis as our speaker at this very important 20th anniversary commemoration.
Well, I'm deeply honored by your invitation to share in this celebration, this 20th anniversary celebration of this Interfaith Holocaust Memorial Service. As you might imagine from hearing Sheila's remarks, Ms. Ennis and I remember our 8 years in this community with great fondness, so many dear friends and so many rich memories. So I thank the Commission for inviting us back. And I would just like to say at the outset how gratifying it is to be back in your midst after these 20 years and to learn of the how the work of the Interfaith Council has expanded its vision from an initial protest against a single isolated act of vicious intolerance to today with a wider and more comprehensive program, which is a protest against every form of human injustice and discrimination, as it, well, at the same time, a plea for human rights for all people. Now, I'd like to think with you for a few moments now on the idea of memory as moral imperative. It was 66 years ago on January 27th, 1945, when the German concentration camp at Auschwitz was liberated by Soviet troops, closing the chapter on one of the most inhumane acts of barbaric cruelty in global history, with over 1 million people, mostly Jews, men and women and children, who were senselessly and systematically slaughtered at Auschwitz. The New York Times reported on the anniversary this year, an anniversary which I'm afraid passed hardly noticed by the rest of the world. There were no bands playing, no flags waving, no parade, just a small, solemn assembly of survivors, relatives, a few townspeople, some who had traveled great distances simply to gather back at Auschwitz to remember and to resolve never to forget the horrors that had occurred at that dreadful camp 66 years earlier. It was 20 years ago. Some of you were here, and some of you will remember very well. Some of you were not even born 20 years ago. But it was 20 years ago on an infinitely smaller scale, certainly not to be compared to the atrocities of Auschwitz. Nevertheless, 46 years after Auschwitz, 20 years ago, there occurred another very unfortunate incident of atrocity here in our Westchester community. Certainly less severe in scope, though similar in motivation. It is the reason, of course, we're gathered here tonight, to remember and to resolve never to forget. You know of what I speak. That shameful morning 20 years ago when the citizens of Bronxville awoke to the stark reality that during the night a despicable graffiti had been sprawled upon the walls of the underpass in the center of our little village. I remember it well. The shock, the pain, the disgrace, and the disappointment inflicted upon the character of our community by anonymous assailants. Not only was the graffiti viciously anti-Semitic in symbolism and language, but the vandals had deliberately targeted the name of the 3 Jewish teachers at the Bronxville school. And although it had been for a long time acknowledged that Bronxville had a reputation for being a rather exclusive, waspish enclave, few of us ever thought things were that bad. Hate crimes just did not happen in Bronxville. Well, to whatever degree the indictment of waspish had been legitimate, the wasp nest had been exposed, and a complacent civic moral conscience was awakened. As Sheila has suggested, the mayor, the police, the school authorities, the local ministerial association, community leadership all converged to address this horrible incident. Students from the Bronxville school mobilized a march down Pondfield Road to express their outrage. And so 20 years ago, the first Holocaust Interfaith Memorial Service was born in southern Westchester County. And while there had been other Holocaust memorial services previously, they were generally held in synagogues and considered mostly a Jewish event. The difference now was that the larger community had been jolted to the realization that hatred, violence, and bigotry know no boundaries. The first service, as Sheila has suggested, was conducted in the sanctuary of the Bronxville Reformed Church. People of goodwill of every faith community filled the sanctuary to overflowing as a show of solidarity. But more importantly, More importantly, we gather to pledge to ourselves and to the Westchester community that there will be no toleration for such atrocities in our community. And so it has been for 20 years now that it has become a tradition every year to gather, as we gather tonight, to refresh our memories and to remind ourselves that memory, more than simply being a nostalgic romp through the past, more even than an occasion to honor victims or to praise heroes, more than a single service of remembrance just once a year, but rather memory carries with it an ongoing moral imperative for the living of our here and now. And that has become our tradition in this village for 20 years. Now, we all recognize that tradition has taken its hits during the culture wars, and well, they should, because some traditions are better forgotten. Some traditions have the power to cripple, to destroy and kill. Our nation almost destroyed its own soul over the tradition of slavery and white supremacy 150 years ago. And certainly every reader of history knows the horrendous atrocities committed against the Jewish people across the centuries, long before Auschwitz, and sometimes, sadly, by self-serving Christian zealots. But more importantly for our purposes tonight, if tradition has the power to harm, tradition also has the power to heal. Contemporary novelist John Updike, who possesses a gift for capturing the deficiencies as well as the dreams of our culture, has a short story in which an American father says on his deathbed, "Jesus, I love that car." At the end of the story, the son reflects on his father's words. "Any day now we will trade it in. I know how it will be. My father traded in many cars. It happened so cleanly before you suspect. He would drive off in the old car, and when he returned, the car would be new. The old was gone, dismissed without a blessing, a testimony, or a ceremony." And then Updike adds, "We Americans need ceremony." And thus it is the contemporary novelist, in a secular way, writes of that innate human need to remember and to ceremonialize those events which touch our lives at critical moments and give shape to who we are. We need our ceremonies. We need anniversaries and celebrations. We need liturgies and rituals and memorials, because it is our ceremonies and our traditions that enrich and preserve our memories for the sake of the future of the human race. We need occasions like tonight. Now, this is not a sermon, but for our purposes, I would point us toward one ancient biblical text which transcends the parochial limitations of any single faith or cultural tradition. It is, of course, the epic story of Moses, having led the people of Israel out of long, arduous years of slavery in Egypt, is now preparing them for entry into the Promised Land. And you know the story. It's what historians and literary scholars refer to as a meta-narrative, a universal story. And so here we have Moses now poised atop Mount Pisgah, overlooking the Promised Land, waiting to enter. Moses, old and feeble by now, and knowing